Okay, in today's video we're going to be looking at a piece of British history. In front of me I have a 4-channel system controller, which is a pyrotechnic firing system designed for live events and theatre. It was designed roughly in the early 1990s. As I say, it was British designed, and it was the first theatre/live event system to have a fault system designed into it. So, like other pyrotechnic firing systems, it's quite simple in the fact that you have a key on switch. You select the channels you want to fire, and then you press fire, and there should be a fire button front end to this. It's just dropped off. This is a second-hand unit I've bought from eBay very cheaply, which is the reason why I've shown you today. I'm going to renovate. I'm going to go over it and make sure it's okay and get it back into life again. And we'll do a few videos on this, so you get to see the whole process. But this was made by a company called Jem FX. This was actually by Jem Smoke. Sorry, the unit was a brand under them called StageFX. Jem Smoke is still quite a big name in the industry today, although Jem, the actual company, was sold quite a while ago at the end of the 90s. Martin Professional still own the Jem side of the company, and they still make smoke machines under the Jem name. This system, I think, got sold off to Sky High FX, that then rebranded it and called it Sky High, obviously. And then I think that got bought out by Illumination Pyrotechnics, I think, later. And I don't think they actually sell a system like this anymore. What made this system revolutionary, as I say, was the fact that you had a feedback system for faults. So this system would not arm itself or allow you to fire it if there was a fault in the system, and the fault could be a short circuit, it could be a cartridge that's not in correctly, etc. And I'll go through the manual in a bit to show you what the features were of the system. So let's just quickly go through the actual casing. So as we can see, it's a standard sort of rack mount system, which is ideal for theatre. And you have what you call the pods. It's used SmartPods as well, which was the first way of creating a system that had that fault checking. They created their own system called SmartPods. And you could fire numerous effects in SmartPods. It wasn't just like one effect. So you have pod selection here on these buttons, and I can feel that one at the bottom is a little bit dodgy, but that may need replacing. Unfortunately, the LEDs on the front, as you can see, all stick through. So there's been any sort of force here, it may have broken them on the circuit board, so we have to look at that. So the front end is quite straightforward. If we now turn it over and look at the back, this is where it gets interesting. So we have a 12-volt DC input here for running off a car battery or whatever in the field if you don't have power. The actual pod system works with 4-pin XLR, which I'm sure those people that use 3-pin XLR for microphones, etc., that'd be pleased. And of course, 5-pin XLR would be DMX in the theatre world. So 4-pin can be DMX in some systems, but that sort of creates a new cable which can't be confused with other cables in theatre. And there's pros and cons of doing that, because you don't want to create a system that has its own unique cable, because you'll never find it in a live event scenario if you had to. You really want to create commonality amongst the systems. But then there's arguments saying, well, you don't want pyro mixed up on the common cables, it could be confused, etc. Then we have a remote input, and this basically disables the fire unless this remote input is also pressed. So this creates a sort of a dead man's handle as such, which in the theatre world is quite useful, because you can't necessarily always see in line of sight where the main controller is to the pyro that's firing on stage or in live events. So you can have a second lookout, and they can have a dead man's handle, so you effectively they have to push their button at the same time you push your button. And obviously it's got a 1 amp fuse, and that sort of tells me that you've got about 1 amp of firing current, realistically, slightly less, otherwise it wouldn't have a 1 amp fuse. So there we go, that's the obviously. And also this has been bought, I bought this from Europe, so you can see it's still got a European plug, so I'll have to change that for a UK one back to how it should be for the British design system. But as I say, I'm not turning this on. This is a second-hand piece of electronics from eBay. I'm going to take it all apart first, make sure the wiring is up to standard, and I can then start to fault test it and replace bits and repair it as such. The only thing that I don't like about this system is, if you look, the rack ears are on the front panel, and box actually is actually screwed into the front panel. So all the weight of the unit is being held by the front panel, not by the box. It'd be better if the box sort of bent out for the ears. But how I guess this will be constructed inside is that there will be a circuit board behind this front panel, and that's what the switches are mounted on, and the LEDs, the key switch. So I expect the key switch and the push button actually are probably not on the PCB because there's depth to them. They'll come out further than the PCB. But something that really worries me at the moment is that you can see these LEDs have been dented and damaged, and I fear there could be board damage. And obviously this button is a bit dodgy as well, so we see if that works or not. But that'll be a future video. We'll cut through to have a look at the advertising material for this, and then that'll be it for this video.